So let's move on to modelling the window frame. So starting with a cube primitive, this is what we'll begin with to create the outline of our frame for the window. So let's just change some of these views actually from, currently they're set to display, they are on my system, to change them to constant shading with lines. Gives you a better idea of what's going on, otherwise you get lots and lots of lines crossing each other and you get a bit confused over which is which. So in the right view, basically our window, what will be our window, the aperture, is going to be this area here. We'll just undo those axes a minute. It's going to be roughly that width. So in our right view, if we just move our cube, resize our cube to approximately the size of the opening, again we can change all these points at a later date, so just get it fairly close by eye, and then width wise we're going to have it as roughly, if you look in the front view, sorry, a window frame will be roughly about half as deep as a wall. So for me, my window depth will be around about this depth, and I'm quite happy with that. So as our window frame is the right depth and the right overall size, what I'm going to do, again going into the right view, is I'm going to, in fact what we could do is close some of these up, and I'm going to actually hide all of the other objects to save us getting a little bit confused with everything. So this will be our window frame. So what we need to do is convert it to a polygonal object by pressing the C key, and what I'm going to do, go into polygon mode and live selection, and in this instance we need to take off only select visible elements because we want both sides to be selected. So if I click there, now you'll notice that both sides are selected, but not the tops and the sides. So it's just those two polygons, this one here and this one here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude inner twice. So press the V key, go to structure, extrude inner, and the first extrude is just going to be, we'll go for an offset of about 1.75 centimeters, and then the second extrude inner is going to be around about 4.6. okay, now we can delete those two polygons. Now we have the same problem here as we had when we cut out the aperture for the wall, so we need to bridge the points where the faces are currently not closed. So if we go into point mode, and then what we need to do, if you remember, we need to bridge by pressing the V key across that face there. Remember, I'm going outside in, I always go outside in, just to keep it consistent. That's that. And the next one is that. And then the final one will be that. So we should have a nice closed window frame on the inside. Right, so just to add a little bit of detail, you'll see why I did two extrudes actually. So what I'll do now, I'm going to go into edge mode, and using the selection tool I'm going to go into loop selection, and I'm going to select the outer edge. I'm also going to do the same on the other side. Let's just spin this around. So hold the shift key down to multiple select. So that's this one and this one. And just to add an extra little bit of detail that will show up in a render, I'm going to go into the scale tool, and I'm just going to bring these in a bit, again by eye, and that's just to add. You probably can't see it there because what's currently going on is it's the shading is trying to be smoothed by the Fong tag, and the Fong tag is only ever useful with curved surfaces, and as our frame is basically a flat shape, we can remove the Fong tag. I always remove Fong tags on things like large flat areas like walls, floors and ceilings as well, and if I haven't yet I will, because there's simply no need to have it. So I'm going to remove my Fong tag, and I'll remove my UVW tag, and you'll see that it just adds that extra little bit of detail to the frame just on the outside. Again, it's nothing, you know, it probably will go completely unnoticed, but some people do notice these things, and it all helps to add to the realism. I keep going on about realism. It's the little things that help with the overall realistic result. So what I will do actually is I'm just going to create, just to make it a little bit more interesting rather than just be one kind of open rectangular frame, I'm going to create another strut down the center. So if we go into our right view, polygon mode, and just to be sure I'm going to select all and press K. Using line mode, my settings are, I think the default is selected as visible only and restrict to selection, if I remember correctly, but remove those two because we want to make a cut that applies to the whole object. So I'm going to click, and pressing the shift key I'm going to click again, and then on the other side I'm going to do the same, click and click, and we should have two cuts. Now I know they're a bit wide at the moment, but we will narrow those down in a second. I made a point of making them wide so we can actually see better what we're doing. Now if we select this polygon here, this new polygon that's just been created, and this polygon, so rather than using points mode, if we now go to the bridge tool and simply click from the one corner point to the adjacent corner point, that will bridge those two polygons in the center. Now all we have to do, I know it's a huge great central strut, but points mode, marquee select, making sure that only visible only select visible elements is deselected. We will select those central points and then scale them inwards, so they're roughly, the central strut is roughly as wide as the outer edges. So that looks approximately okay to me. Now if we go back into our 3D view and just have a quick scoot around, that looks absolutely fine to me. And what I'll do before we do anything else is I'll also add what will be the window, the glass window pane. Some people have been known to use a plain object, but personally I find that as that really only has one face, the depth of one face, it doesn't give realistic refractions. So if you use a cube but to a very minimal thickness, that will give more realistic reflections and refractions. So again, we'll go for a cube, and then literally just line this up. So there you go, and then we'll put that just so it sits within the frame. And all we have to do is move this inside the frame. Let's just zoom straight in so it sits in the center. Now you could do this by eye like this, but on the x-axis we'll just make it say something like 3 mil deep. Make it 2 mil, so that's 0.2 of a centimetre. Again, it might not look that different at the moment from a plain object, but as it actually has physical thickness, it will create better refractions. So now we'll just rename these, and we'll call this frame, and I'm going to call this glass. In fact, I'll shift select those, and I'm going to press Option G or Alt G to create a group, so they are one group, and I'll just call that window frame. And then if we make everything else visible in our viewport, in fact I might leave off the ceiling actually so we can actually see what it looks like, and there we have our framed window.